How feels everyone?
Awake and ready.
Okay, let's start with a prayer. Heavenly Father,
Heavenly Father,
Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
Friend, beloved God,
Friend, beloved God,
Jesus Christ,
Jesus Christ,
Babaji Krishna,
Babaji Krishna,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Lahiri Mahashaya,
Swami Shri Yukteswar,
Swami Shri Yukteswar,
beloved Guru,
beloved Guru,
Paramahansa Yogananda Ji,
Paramahansa Yogananda Ji,
saints of all religions,
saints of all religions,
beloved Swamiji,
beloved Swamiji,
we humbly bow to you all.
we humbly bow to you all.
Bless us,
Bless us
with thy guidance,
with thy guidance,
with thy magnetism,
with thy magnetism,
added to our efforts,
added to our efforts,
to help us achieve
to help us achieve
complete liberation,
complete liberation,
and to serve thee
and to serve thee
willingly and expansively,
willingly and expansively,
to help bring these great teachings
to help bring these great teachings
around the globe.
around the globe.
Om,
Om,
peace.
peace.
Amen.
Amen.
We're going to start with a couple of songs.
So we're all the choir. We're all going to sing, just so you know. Okay, so we're going to start with I Will Always Think of Thee, and then Life is a Dream. You can sit, you can stand, you can come forward, you can do whatever you want, but we're all going to sing together.
Every morning when I greet the sun, when I move forth through crowded ways, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. When I laugh, Lord, when I cry with pain, when my best friends misunderstand, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. Dear God, my God, I am thine for eternity. Dear God, my God, I am thine eternally. Though my path leads me over desert sands, though it takes me through bitter storms, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. When I'm working and when it ends repose, that come victory or low defeat, in my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. In my heart, Lord, ever so silently, I will always think of Thee. Dear
as you feel to.
Life is a dream, time like a stream, carries our burdens away. Never despair, joys everywhere, love can befriend you today. Free from all care, like birds on the air, soar above griefs and worries, seek joy and be gay. Often on earth, things of great worth, worldly ambitions defy. Sometimes a friend helps us ascend up from life's cares to the sky. Love is a star, though shining afar, it can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh. Love is a star, though shining afar, it can guide us and help us toward light to draw nigh.
Well, how nice to gather. Just to let you know, these gatherings have a dual purpose. One is for inspiration, and the other is for information. So I think what Devi and I will do is start with the more inspirational part, and then I'll do that, and then Devi will do it. She said once the information starts, it's hard to bring it back to the inspirational part, and it's very true. So I was reflecting this morning. It was sometime right around now, 51 years ago, that I first came to this spot. So it was 1967, and none of this was here. It was only the water tower at that time. But so it's been 51 years for me. It's been a lot of years for a lot of us. And more than the years, at the end of meditation, I happened to glance. Krishna Das and Mantra Devi were sitting right in front, and so they caught my eye, and the thought came into my mind, I wonder how many lifetimes we have been sitting together in meditation in various places around this globe. The year after Swami's passing, or the year of Swami's passing, in the fall, Devi and I were in India, and we had a nadi reading, which is like a Bhrigu reading. It comes from the line of Sukdev, and from this reader in Bangalore. And as Swami has described, you know, you have these palm leaves, and it's written on about that wide and about 14 inches long or something, and they're folded little like accordion shape. After he found the right readings, what he gave for what we could verify in this life was incredibly accurate, down to fine details. So we can only assume what he said about the past or the future had that same level. But one of the things he said about us, but it applies to all of us, he said that you have been following the same three masters. Now this is a man who, this was the first time we ever met him. All he had was our name and our birth date. So he said, you've been following the same three masters for many lifetimes. Babaji, Paramahansa Yogananda, and Swami Kriyananda. And so I think that's true, especially for the Sevakas who have come to earth to help continue this lineage and continue the task that Master was given by God, and then he passed on to Swami, and Swami has passed on to all of us. You know, it's not like we have to look very far to understand what the purpose of our incarnation is, what the purpose of their incarnation was. It's in the first paragraph of the autobiography of a yogi. It's that the purpose of life has always been the search for eternal verities and the concomitant disciple-guru relationship. And so that, obviously, if that's the general purpose for everybody in the world, by the time you have been following the same three masters for many lifetimes, that gets very kind of focused like a laser in our consciousness. So for all of us, our purpose for incarnating is, one, to find self-realization, to find moksha, and secondly, to continue the concomitant and necessary part of that, which is the disciple-guru relationship. And then I was thinking about Swami's life, and Swami defined his life in that way. You know, we think, oh, all of the things he did. Actually, he didn't do anything. And he himself said he didn't do anything. Toward the end of his life, and many of you, probably all of you have heard this, he said that toward the end of my life, I couldn't tell where Master left off and Swami Kriyananda began, because he was so identified as an extension of Master. That's the goal for all of us. But what does that identification look like? What does the purpose of our life look like? What is the essence, the core value of the Sevaka order? It's twofold. One, as stated in the first paragraph of the AY, the first is that all of us have incarnated in order to become self-realized. That is the central focus of it. And without that, nothing is going to hold together, nor is anything going to have power. We're going to go on and talk about, you know, Ananda and the expansion that's happening and the things that are happening and what's going to happen in the next year or 2 years, because we have two very big years coming up. One is the 50th anniversary of Ananda, which is coming up, and obviously the dedication of the temple is going to be part of that. But then the year after is the 100th anniversary of Master's coming to America. So these 2 years are going to be very important and very expansive, because, as I say, there are two parts to that statement that Master made. One is the individual search for eternal verities, which in our case is the absolute focus on self-realization and to becoming so attuned to God that there is no difference, that we can't tell where, I don't know, any of us, where Hriman stops and Master takes over, or where Master stops and Divine Mother takes over, that it all becomes one. That's the first part of it, but the other is the concomitant disciple-guru relationship, and that we have modeled for us so beautifully by Swamiji. So we might think of all of the things that he did, but as I said, he himself said, I didn't do anything. I didn't write books. I didn't give talks. I didn't build communities. I tuned into Master. My life was about being the best disciple that I could be. And as an extension of that discipleship, then Master told me to write books. Master told me to give talks. And Master told me, although not directly, but intuitively he told me to start communities. But the communities and the talks and the writing and the music and all of that, everything outward, has no reality or importance in and of itself except as an expression of discipleship, an expression of attunement, because it is through that attunement, through that disciple-guru relationship, that the more perfectly it evolves, the more dedicated we are toward that end. That process dissolves the ego, which is what keeps us in all of the difficulties that we encounter. Now, obviously, as part of that, we have certain responsibilities that karmically have come to us and have to be fulfilled in a righteous way, in a dharmic way. And so all of that is a part of the picture, but it isn't the core of the picture. The core of the picture is simply the search for self-realization and the disciple-guru relationship. And that's the core, that's the whole purpose for the founding of and the continuation of the Sevaka order. This now beautiful tree 50 years ago was much smaller. But it was here, sitting in front of this tree, that Swami gave class after class after class, because he felt in his heart the charge and the responsibility to bring Master's teachings into the world. Remember, he said on the bus trip from New York, he was so touched by these teachings. He wanted to meet Master, wanted to become his disciple, but equally he wanted to share those teachings. And so kind of the core DNA of Ananda is that combination that Swami started for us but has passed down to us. It's as if he's the father, mother for the spiritual DNA of all of us. And his core desire was to become a disciple and to share the teachings. And now that has expanded and expanded. So now 51 years later, or depending on where you're going to count it, from 1948, it's nearly 70 years. It is 70 years in just a few months. That core desire, one, to be a disciple, and secondly, to help share these teachings. That's why Master called Swami to him. That's why Swami magnetized all of us to come. If we've been with both of them and Babaji for many, many lifetimes, then in this lifetime, it follows upon that Master came with a certain mission. We all know it. We teach it, most of us, that at the changeover to Dwapara Yuga, this line of Masters descended in order to give the teachings to the world of how to live properly in this age. And so Master, Babaji came down, all Lahiri, Sri Yukteswar, Master, all of the line of gurus, but then Master called to him those close disciples. In Swami's case, he called to him the son that he had had in more than one lifetime, and who had over and again during his incarnational adventures incarnated in order to carry on the work of his father, the work of his guru. So he called to him Swami, and Swami in turn, or Master and Swami together, or since all three of them were included, Babaji and Master and Swami all together called all of us, because it takes many hands to create a miracle. Master couldn't do it alone. Master and Swami couldn't do it alone. It takes a lot of people, thousands of youths, have to go north, south, east, and west. And we're those thousands of youths that have been called specifically, not so youths anymore, but we were when we came, by golly. I remember the day. So, but this is a huge work, and it's already growing from the dream of being a global work to the reality of being a global work. It already is that. We used to 10 years ago affirm that that we were there, or it was going to be, but affirmation is now in the past. Its actuality is here, and we'll talk about that more during the informational part. But all of us have the same DNA that Swami had when he went to Master, and that's the desire to be as good of a disciple as we can possibly be, and to share dynamically, creatively, expansively these great teachings, which is the reason that Master incarnated at this time. And so, especially over these next 2 years, because when we can feel it, and we'll talk about this more during the informational part, but there is a wave of grace that is moving, and we're just surfers riding that wave of grace, and that wave has built up and built up until it's very powerful, and will continue to be even more powerful. It will continue to build over the next 2 years because of the chronological, one might say, confluence of the planets, you know. So the chronological accumulation of all the effort, all of the tapasya, all of the meditations, not only of this lifetime, but of many lifetimes. But, you know, I suspect that sitting here in this group represents way more than 1 million meditations, individual meditations. I was kind of adding up in my mind, and I'm somewhere around 40,000 meditations. That doesn't mean kriyas, it means a succinct meditation. So you spread that out among all of us, and it adds up pretty quickly. So there's been a lot of tapasya, but not tapasya, a lot of desire and intention and the attunement of our individual will with the will of God. That builds up a great power and a great magnetism, and that wave now has built, and chronologically adding to it are these kind of century and half-century markers that people are more open to at that time. So we have a great opportunity in the next year and 2 years to ride this wave that has been building and bring this work out in ways that it has never been able to be brought out, and reach people that we've never been able to reach before. And we'll talk about some specifics of that, but that really is our charge over especially this next year or 2 years, deepening our discipleship and serving Master with his mission of expanding these teachings into the world.
Bless you.
Thanks to the sound crew for fine-tuning. I was having similar thoughts when Jyotish started off with, when we were in there meditating this morning. It wasn't the same temple. It was an earlier version that burned down when I first came. But it was in that time-space locale that I first heard chanting, heard Swami chanting. Never heard it in my life. It was like, oh my God, how long has this been going on? You know, it was like, I didn't know it was possible that you could hear such beautiful sounds like that. It was either here or in that temple that I first heard Swami lecture. And this was 1969, so 50 years ago next year. But I was thinking now, those of us who were here that first summer, and many of us are still around, we were imbued with a ray. And we didn't know it at the time. We didn't know what was happening to our lives, but it happened. And now we carry on, all of us together. But through the intense spiritual centeredness of Swami, he created not only disciples in all of us, but he created these communities. And here we are gathered all together today, the Sevaka order, and there are many others who are not present today, and people in India and in Europe, and so forth. But what is the Sevaka order and why is it important? Because everything Swami gave us was really a part of furthering the mission of the masters. And the Sevaka order, I'm coming to see more and more clearly, is the spiritually defining matrix of the community's movement. Because if we did not have that at our center, it would be so easy for it just to be a feel-good, loosey-goosey, eclectic movement. But that's not what Swami gave us. And that's not why Master came and gave that speech. And you know, I was just doing I do simple math calculations as well. Jyotish calculates how many meditations. I calculate what year did that happen. But so it was July 1949 that Master gave the Beverly Hills Garden Party talk. So next year will be our 50th anniversary, but it will be the 70th anniversary. That's not that long ago, really, that Master gave the talk about communities. And they began developing, but that Swami saw, how are we going to keep this grounded in our vibration? How are we going to keep this grounded so that people don't come and introduce this and that? And he created the Sevaka order for that purpose. Because what is the Sevaka order? It's not, okay, I did this class and I have to wait a year and I have to meet with this committee and that committee. Please, if that's what it becomes, I hope we fold it up and throw it away. What it is how to live your discipleship. And if we're living our discipleship at the core of the community's movement, we've got a real solid foundation that will endure far into the future. So what are the simple guidelines? They're not, they're adaptations of what monastic orders have always been. Simplicity, not poverty, but simplicity. Why do we want that? Because we don't want to be attached to things in this world. I didn't come here to acquire great wealth. And I mean, some people have the karma to have, some people don't. But it's the intention. It's the intention that we're not here. We're here to live very, very simple lives and not to be razzle-dazzled by everything the world has to offer. Moderation, not celibacy. Moderation too, we're controlling the senses. We're not just saying, and that's why we have such integrity in marriages and relationships, because we're not reaching out in those ways that most of the world reaches out. So to have that integrity, to control the senses, to draw them in, and of course with the practice of Kriya Yoga, it goes hand in glove with that. Because Kriya Yoga is about drawing that energy in and bringing it up. And then finally, cooperative obedience. And I think, in a way, the other two are easy compared to cooperative obedience. Because who's going to tell me what to do? Who's going to tell me what I can sing or what I can't sing? Who's going to tell me, what books I can read or not read? Who's going to tell me what techniques I can do or not do? Yeah, who? Maybe it's the guru. And are you willing to buck that? And so we have to come back to cooperative obedience, cooperating. Swami wrote that book, Cooperating with Grace. That's really all it's about. It's not about subjugating yourself to somebody else's will. It's by following the techniques and the lifestyle that the gurus have given us. And to say, this is the path they gave us for liberation. Hriman was telling us he recently went to visit, he was invited to present at Song of the Morning Ranch. They had a big yoga fest. And he said the core leaders there who were with Yogacharya Black are very clearly disciples of Master. But then there's a lot of other people there. And it can be quite eclectic. We haven't gone that way because Swami gave us the Sevaka order to define our lives as disciples. Not to again, it's not about being oppressed or suppressed. It's about being given the guidelines for how to live in a way that's going to help us find God and to help us keep the particular spiritual, both intensity and focus of what Master and Swami envisioned for communities. And this applies to every aspect of our life, how we run our businesses, how we raise our children, how we educate our children, how we relate to the natural environment, how we plan our communities, on and on and on. It's all a reflection of the Sevaka order because it's all drawing back to the point of attunement and discipleship. And so it's so wonderful that we come together annually because we don't, the Sevaka website is a fabulous thing, but it's two-dimensional, you know, it's just up on the screen. By the way, this was something that for me was the most fascinating thing I've ever heard. A totally new concept. Last weekend we were in Sacramento doing the last of the Yoga Fest. We'll talk about that more. But Puru Shotama gave a talk on his book, The Physics of God. And one of the things he said, we were there listening to him, and I've never heard this, maybe you have, that the astral world is two-dimensional, not three-dimensional, because it doesn't have the aspect of time. And I didn't hear anything else he said. I just sat there and thought, oh my God, I didn't know that. Or I didn't remember that. You know, I just thought it was sort of like the same as this world, but a little nicer. But it's a different dimension. And then it sort of made sense because I remember moments. I remember getting my first Kriya from Swami in that temple, and I remembered the blessing as though it had happened yesterday. And many, many moments here and there with Swami where it was like time doesn't really exist. It's just always now. And that's what the astral world is. It's always now, but in two dimensions. And I can't say I understand it, but I'm thinking about it because it's an amazing concept. But for all of us, we talk about 50 years and 70 years and 100 years. Master's giving that talk right now about the Beverly Hills Garden Party. I noticed Shama has a t-shirt on that says, with malice towards none, with charity towards all, which is, of course, Abraham Lincoln. That talk's being given right now, if we could hear it. And so, with our Sevaka order, it's not about time and space. It's about the soul's direction, the movement of the soul towards liberation, and what that creates, the impact that has on the world around us. The world needs light so much now. And by living our lives with humility, simplicity, moderation, cooperative obedience, this is what Master gave us, the guru-disciple relationship. It's the core of all reality because it's that pivotal moment in time where the soul moves away from identification with this body and this world and moves towards identification with light. That's really what it is, and it's always happening. The moment Swami met Master is happening right now. The moment Master met Sri Yukteswar is happening right now. The moment you met Swami is happening right now. The moment you find God is happening right now. We just have to clear away the debris so that we can live in that moment. And as Sevakas, we can help define the community's movement by always living in that moment. So now we want to share information. Not really, it's really inspiring too, but it'll have more details. So Jyotish will start.
So I'll talk about a couple of things that are happening. I'm going to talk about the movie The Answer and the Institute. And I'll talk about The Answer first because it's relatively simpler. You all have all seen that. Speaking of the moment that Swami met Master, you're going to see that again because it's happening right now. It's contained in some sort of a nebulous form of a hard drive, and so that moment happens over and over and over again all the time. But we're going to see it projected up on a screen. And so we're going to start seeing that worldwide on August 31st. So just about 3 weeks from now, there is a big team. There is a woman in India named Madhurita, and she met Swamiji at the time of his last visit to India. Swami had written The Time Tunnel. She's a movie producer and director, very well known in certain circles, especially in India. And Swami met her and asked her if she could take the Time Tunnel and turn it into a weekly TV show, you know, with different episodes every week. And she said, let me work on it. She said, it will need a lot more conversation. And Swami said, yes, we'll have many more conversations. And that was the last time she ever saw him. So,
That's going to tip over. Be careful.
yeah. So she's the one who is now in charge of getting it distributed. And she has enormously rich connections, especially in India. So she's working with a distribution company, and they're working, they have a large team, 10, 20 people working on this. So a lot of reviews going out, a lot of a new trailer has gone out. Right now they're working on getting a few really famous people, including perhaps this Rajnikant Khan, who attended our talk last year and watched Finding Happiness. He is the most well-known actor in India. We asked Dharmarajan to describe, you know, what does that mean? He said there's no American equivalent. He said if you took Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, and Robert De Niro, and you combined them into one, that's who this fellow is for India. He's a disciple of Babaji and a disciple of Master, and so we're hoping that he will endorse this film. He's a member of SRF, so we'll find out. Nonetheless, whether that happens or not is secondary. The key is that they're working in a very broad and very deep way, and there's already a buzz going on about the film, and it will go viral if it gets his endorsement. So they're working on that. That will happen. The first showing will be in Gurgaon on August 31st, and then it will follow in other Indian cities, and sometime in the fall late fall probably, it will come to America. We aren't trying to have lots and lots, hundreds of screenings, because the end result is that 95% of the people will see this movie probably on a cell phone or on a television screen. And so the real purpose of the screenings is to get good reviews so that we get a lot of momentum behind it, so then when it is taken up by Amazon or Netflix or somebody like that, that it will have a buzz about it and a lot of people will go to it. But so having lots and lots of screenings, it's not a blockbuster kind of film that'll have that. But in America, she is a close friend from a long time with the woman who was the director for Awake, and we will be using some of those same channels, and we're already using them in India, the same channels. So at any rate, that is happening. So sometime toward the end of this year, it will come to America, and then we'll all have it perpetually after that and be able to show it along with Finding Happiness. So that's a big development. Now that's important in a certain sense, because for me, that film is the most powerful projection of the disciple-guru relationship that certainly I've ever seen. And so yes, it's about Swami, and yes, it's about Master, but it's also about the principle that when you're searching for eternal verities, the answer comes in the guru-disciple relationship. And so it's personal and impersonal at the same time. But boy, does America need that message right now. Does the world need that message, that there is an answer, there are values, there is a purpose to life, and directionally the purpose is to find truth. So
talk about the different ending, the new ending.
Oh, there's one of the things that was the most commented on by people who had seen it was, it would be really nice to have Swami at the end during the credits. So that's going to happen. We haven't yet seen it, but they've already done that. So that's happening. They've tweaked a few other minor things in the film. And so anyway, that's coming. So now the Institute. The Institute is important in part because it is slightly a new paradigm for Ananda. You know, this community is, as we know, 50 years old, and then the other communities, the meditation groups, the spread of Ananda to, first of all, to Europe and all around Europe, and then to India and all around India. It's basically followed the same model, which is that these teachings have been brought to those people and put out for that class of people with the end goal of having them become disciples, to help provide a pathway, a channel, a funnel, one might say, that leads ultimately to a lifelong relationship, the disciple-guru relationship, that lifelong relationship, which will avail itself to those seeking at this level, seeking moksha or seeking self-realization, which is why one, as a soul, forms a guru-disciple relationship. And it doesn't come until that soul is ready to seriously seek liberation. But that leaves out, as Krishna said, out of 1,000 only one seeks me. So that leaves out the other 999 people out of that 1,000. And so we want to appeal to that other grouping, not the 999, because, you know, 950 of those 999 people aren't ready for the first part of Master's formula of seeking eternal verities. They're seeking temporary entertainment and education. They're going through their karmic stuff. But let's take 50 out of 1,000 and say that those are the people who want truth in their life. They want higher values. They want something more. They have realized that this world does not fulfill their expectations, but they aren't yet ready to make the step of saying, oh, well, what I need is a guru. But they're ready to have the steps toward that. So the Institute is appealing to a different, one might say, paradigm than what we have. And Pia, who is behind us, I'm going to come to it in a minute. We were talking with her last year, and she said, do you really want to do this? Should we really go ahead with this institute? She said, because in business, there's a principle called opportunity cost. You may be able to do something, but if you put your energy into doing that, it precludes that energy or that money into going elsewhere. She said, for what is going to get spent on this institute, we could maybe open up another 200 centers around India. So the opportunity cost is there. Which do we want to do? Well, that was a real question and something to take seriously. But the opening of another 200 centers is an extension of ground that we have already plowed, and plowed very, very well, and is going to continue on its own in any case. To appeal to a whole new grouping of people, to bring these teachings into the world to a whole new group of people, is something that we have not yet done. Now, is it out of attunement with Master or Swami? Master started a yoga university. Swami, when we were in LA, wanted to start a university down there and have a department to do with each of his books. He wasn't looking to have people become just disciples. He wanted to take these teachings and spread them throughout the world. And so when we considered the opportunity cost of doing this project, we said we should go for it. And let's go for it, not just in a little way. Let's go for it. If we're going to do it, let's really do it. So Pia, who is part of the DLF family, her mother passed away around Christmas, a little before Christmas. Her father went through a kind of a spiritual change at that point and decided that he had done everything. He's a multi-billionaire. DLF owns more property in India than the government of India does. And so he said, I've accomplished everything in my life, but I haven't done enough for society. He said, I want to build a temple. They already have this perfect piece of property, 7 acres in the best location, one of the best locations in Delhi. I want to build a temple there and an institute. And Pia was stunned. I don't think she actually said it to him, but she thought, Dad, you've never even been in a temple. And now you want to build one. He doesn't want to just build a temple, he wants to build an iconic temple. So we don't have images here, but everybody knows the image of the Opera House in Sydney with all the shell shapes. So I'm not using that as the model for this, I'm using that as an iconic image of a building. And so that's what he wants to build on this property. He's interested, and the family's interested in the real estate part because that's their background. Pia, on the other hand, is a deep devotee, and she's interested and only interested in the same thing that all of the rest of us are interested in, and that's serving Master and dedicating her life to that service. So it started out, many of you heard that we were going to do an Institute for Leadership there. Well, the family got together and they talked about it, and basically there were a lot of objections, not from Pia, from the other members of the family, who said essentially having a temple site and a leadership institute mushed together doesn't make sense. People are going to react to that. They want their temple site to be dedicated to spiritual purposes. So if we're going to do an institute, let's not do a leadership institute, let's do a spiritual institute. Now again, Pia didn't say, but said, you don't know what a spiritual institute is. But I know the people who know what that is. And so the family's interested in building the buildings. Pia is interested in the institute and the content of it. So it's been morphing over the last few months, but it's becoming clearer and clearer. First of all, Pia said Pia wants it absolutely, completely, totally dedicated to Master and Swami and these teachings. She doesn't want it eclectic. She doesn't want to have Sri Sri Ravi Shankar come in and do the how to live, art of living teachings here. She says he's doing that. Let him do that. This is for Master. And it will be clearly and upfront an institute with Master's teachings in it. Then a couple of months ago, she had a revelation. She was rereading the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, and she said, Master said that millions of people will find God through this book. How is that going to happen? Let's have the institute based at its core on the Gita, the essence of the Gita, because it describes everything one needs for dharmic living. And so the core of the institute is going to be based on the essence of the Gita, and then from that, all of the teachings that Master and Swamiji have brought. And so Devi and I, along with Dhyana, and to some extent Jaya, who travels all over, it's hard to pin him down, but when he's there, when Devi and I go over, we'll go over to Italy in a week and a half and be a month in Italy and then on to India. Our time in India is the primordial agenda is to develop the curriculum for the Institute based on Master's teachings. And so we'll be working in that process. And then when we get that going, then there will be a need for many people to come and help teach and so on. But if we get too many cooks trying to stir that pot, cook that soup, it'll turn into mush. So it'll be really Devi and myself, Jaya, Dhyana, Pia, and Daljit, who has been hired as to be the head of that institute, working on what the core curriculum will be. And then it'll spread out from there, but that's the task ahead of us. So we've already promised to stay on a little bit longer than we were planning to. We'll be coming back not at the beginning of December as we have before, but somewhere 10th, 12th, I don't know, so a week or 2 weeks farther in, because it could be critical time to kind of finish up polishing. But our primary agenda is to create that curriculum while we're in India. At the same time, we'll visit all of the centers and do the satsangs and the talks and all of the things that we have been doing in any case. But that's a secondary push. as opposed to that's on the front burner. Now the hope, and I'll end with this, the hope is that sometime, maybe in the spring of next year, the classes will start in the Institute because they don't depend on having the buildings. Buildings will take 3-5 years, who knows what. But we'll start classes because there's a lot of property and we can have classes elsewhere. But we'll start these classes based absolutely on Master's deep teachings. Pia is not interested in watering down these teachings at all. She is interested in relanguaging it so that we work with principles and that it appeals to a broader audience. And then if people want to move on to discipleship, we have the infrastructure in place already. They can go to the Ananda centers and receive, they'll already know how to meditate from the Institute, but they may not yet have the lessons in discipleship or Kriya. Then they can get that. But so it's to keep absolutely faithful to the core of our teachings, but relanguage them so that they're available to a larger audience. And this is meant to be a world-class institute. We have consultants who have already done these. And so think in terms of 5 or 10 years, there will be these teachings on how to be happy that will be given at Harvard and Yale and Stanford and other places, based deeply on Master's teachings, but represented the same teachings in a way that appeals to a larger audience. So that's what we're engaged on. We figured that the opportunity cost was worth it, and I think you all agree. So that's a very, very important new step, and in a certain sense, I see it as the completion of Swamiji's mission, of what he had intended. And of course, since he didn't know where he left off and Master started, it's the completion of Master's mission. So we're all together in this, and it won't happen without all of our energies.
Well, I'll just share a few things too, closer to home. I think, and we're going to have Nakula come up in a little bit and talk about the temple and the Seva Week, because really that temple and the energy around it, I think right now is the most important thing that's really happening. There's such a flow of grace and inspiration and power and that's happening. But before we get to that, just events coming up. Spiritual Renewal Week starts Sunday night, tomorrow night. It's going to be a wonderful week, kind of traditional as we always have. But with one exception, on Saturday, we'll have this temple tile signing, which if you haven't purchased a tile, Mai Lee was telling me yesterday, it's been who works with our development department. She said, usually when we do a fundraising drive, it's basically the people you know, maybe not the same old faces, but there's a body of people that donate. She said, for this tile campaign, we're getting people we've never heard of, but they want to sign their name or their children's name or their mother's name, someone they love, on one of the backs of the tiles that are going to go up on that building. So that's Saturday. We'll have a special, you can sign the titles all week long because not everyone will be here on Saturday. No. Okay, I keep looking at Geeta because she has all the details. No, you can only sign them Saturday. Okay. It's changing. So Saturday we will sign the tiles, and then we'll have a special ceremony. They're rather delicate ceramic tiles, so we can't move them around a lot. But then, next year, for the Anandas, we've been having some wonderful, wonderful meetings with different groups of people to get a vision for what's going to happen next year. And it's going to be different from anything, in some ways, than anything we've ever done here, because it will be more of a celebration, a week-long celebration. People are coming from all over the world. We're trying to get numbers, estimated numbers. We expect somewhere throughout the week, somewhere between 500 and 800 people through the week. And then on Saturday, the actual dedication day, maybe 1,000 people. But so people from, a whole group is coming from Europe, in our centers there. They've rented already the whole meditation retreat for next year. And we're working, if you know people that want to come and they say, oh, everything's reserved, we are spreading our net far and wide to reserve places for people to come. So no one will be turned away. We're renting Shady Creek, we'll be renting B&Bs, whatever we need to do. But there will be room for everyone. So I just want to kind of, with broad brushstrokes, give you some ideas of what we're thinking about. The title, which we kept dancing around, we're going to call it Ananda's 50th anniversary. So that's half a century of sharing the light, June 30th to July 7th. And that's the actual date of, July 4th is the 50th anniversary. And we're inviting VIPs from all over the world. We're on the dedication day itself, which will be Saturday, we're inviting representatives from many different religions. In the morning, we'll have two different aspects of the dedication. In the morning, we're inviting the people that we hope will participate from Seattle. There's two wonderful interfaith representatives. One is Iman Jamal, who is a very eloquent, dynamic Muslim, Rabbi Ted Falcon. They will come representing their faiths. Recently, we were blessed with the visit of Tibetan Buddhist Rinpoche, who's very close with the Dalai Lama. He just did a week-long retreat with some of his disciples here at the meditation retreat. He said, of course I will come. We invited him. We hope we will have a representative from Christianity, hopefully for those of you who were in LA or Palo Alto, Gwen Gabord, who's an Episcopalian minister and has one of the largest, most dynamic interfaith works I've ever seen in LA. She's battling some health issues, but we hope she can come. If not, we'll have another Christian representative. Daljit Singh will represent Hinduism. And so we're hoping that all these different aspects, we'll have niches around the temple for all the different world religions. And these people can do a prayer in their native language and offer a light to these different areas. So it will be very, very impressive. Then in the afternoon, we're inviting also other dignitaries. Pia Singh, who is always a part of our hearts and minds and words. We hope that she can come. Sri Kartikeyan, who many of us know from his deep devotion to Swami. And, he's in his mid-80s. He has a global humanitarian work, but he always finds time. In most cities that Jyotish and I give major talks in, he will fly in and introduce the talk, and his name carries a lot of weight. So he is definitely coming, and then the afternoon will be more, in the morning also we will invoke the presence of the masters into the murtis, into the statues that will be there. The afternoon will be more speaking dignitaries, Kartikeyan, Pia, others, and different ceremonial aspects. Of course, we'll have to break the coconut, which is traditional in India. But, and then after we bless it, then we will all move over. Again, this is a new idea. So this will be Saturday. We'll all go to the expanding light, and we'll have a huge outdoor buffet, sort of like we do for those of you who live at the Village for World Brotherhood Day. Beautiful tables set up all over. Imagine 1,000 people with beautiful varied buffets everywhere of all different kinds of food, and we can just mingle and talk and celebrate this. It's all right, I don't need those. It was the schedule. It's already. But anyway, that will be the dedication itself, where we could have 1,000 people. One change that we've come up with, because we want to also, we've built wonderful friendships in Nevada County through the Tulip Springtime at Ananda. We have a mailing list of, I don't know who knows, but about 10,000 names from the people who have visited to just see the tulips. So 2 weeks after we have our more spiritual dedication, we will have an open house and dedication for Nevada County. We will invite mayors and board of supervisors. There's one man that Atma knows who has actually been helpful to us. Who's on the planning commission, and he will be invited. There's a lot of regulations, and we should all hold Atman in our prayers. He's doing battle with the demons of bureaucracy so that we can build a temple and that we could have a master plan. So we will be inviting all the people who have come for the Tulip Festival, local officials and dignitaries, and that'll be July 18th. It's a Saturday. So that can be more kind of greeting the public rather than just making it a sacred time for us. We didn't know how to separate that. Okay, other aspects of this week, not to drag out too long, but there will be, again, this try to do a festive air. In the morning, we'll have a master class, the temple, and it'll be the mission of our masters, the history of Ananda, dedication to the life and legacy of Swamiji, and so forth. And that will be, the temple will seat at 500. We're also, part of the temple plan is a huge outdoor tent or pandal that seats another 500 people. So we will have screens there at the expanding light current temple. So we'll be able to accommodate everyone who can see it live or on the screen. But in the afternoons, we're going to have what we're calling zones. So we're going to have a zone for music and chanting. And this will be celebratory, experiential, people coming together, doing yoga postures, chanting, learning Swami's music, all the different aspects of Ananda. So that will be going on in the afternoons, every afternoon. And then in the evenings, we'll have entertainment, but for example, again, it's to draw all of our communities together. One of the nights, I believe it's Wednesday night, we're going to have a retrospective of Swami's different dramatic plays that he's given us. So Seattle and Portland are collaborating on a 25-minute excerpt from the Peace Treaty. Sacramento will do the same for Singer and the Nightingale. Palo Alto will do Land of Golden Sunshine. From Ananda Village, we'll do a 25-minute excerpt from Jewel and the Lotus. So we'll get to see just a touch of all the different plays. And the same with the concert. We're hoping that it'll weave in, like we did last year, excerpts from Swami's writings and so forth. So really to celebrate the creative expression that went into Ananda. So we're really looking at, oh, and one last thing, this is very fun. On Friday, we need to have a special fundraising event to help pay for this event. So, so we're going to have, and it's a donation basis, it'll be at the Crystal Hermitage, but it will be a reenactment of the Beverly Hills Garden Party. Well, it'll be in costume, and so it'll be really fun. So these are all some of the creative ideas that have gone into the visioning, and it's going to keep building as we go. So mark it down on your calendars right now. And I think that's really all I have to say. So I would like to invite Nakula, who, yeah. It was his idea to do this Sevaka week, to have the temple built by all of our communities. So we asked him to talk a little bit about the Seva week and the temple.
Well, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be helping us build our temple. I'm the luckiest guy here to be able to have the opportunity to to be the guy at the eye of the storm. It's not like a thunderstorm, but it's a storm of energy that's bringing our temple from the astral causal planes down into the physical plane, just like the palace that Babaji built for Lahiri in Himalayas. That's what it really is we're building, and that's what you're going to see when it's all there. You won't see the boards and nails, but you'll see that beautiful astral temple. We had, I believe, about 56 people registered for the full week, and at least a dozen more showed up unannounced, and at least another dozen or two showed up for a few days. We had many, many, many people, many of you all, many, many people from the different departments of the community or residents here and nearby that all came and put their time into it. We had in the 80s and 90s, we had an Ananda Builders Guild that built many of the homes and buildings, and we had kind of a reunion of about a dozen from that group. And we had about a dozen of the descendants. I'd like to say the sons of builders, but we had Kashama there, so we've got to say the descendants of the builders were there with us. A whole new generation and a whole other group of younger people that are in spirit disciples from a new time now that we're having. We put up 2 full layers of sheathing, the plywood skin that goes on the dome, and completed the rafters up at the peak. We finished creating the walls around the whole front entry and classroom area with the skin on that part of the wall too. Unfortunately, the trusses weren't able to make it. The lumber industry is pretty backed up right now, and so that'll be coming in about another week, the trusses. We'll put those up. We completed a lot of other small pieces, some posts for the fire gates, the columns and beams around the walk-around entry, and just many, many projects. But the energy was really so high and good. It's just really an honor to be able to be there in it. And one of the highlights for me was like Devi was saying about the temple we have here. I remember when I first came having kirtans and different saints from India that Swami invited here that had satsangs in the frame, the bare frame of the dome when it was built. So we had a kirtan there, and I think we're going to follow with another one next week. If you didn't make it, it's just awesome feeling all those vibrations going into the building. And so I guess I'd like to close by just sharing with you briefly a little bit of the time-honored tradition. I'm working on a building, I'm working on a building, I'm working on a building for my Lord, for my Lord. It's a Holy Ghost building, it's a Holy Ghost building, it's a Holy Ghost building for my Lord, for my Lord. Thank you, everyone, and keep coming to help us build our building. Thank you.
We don't want to linger too much longer, but if anyone has questions or something important to share that others may not know, we can have a little time for that.
I just wanted to see that you might want to mention that there won't be a spiritual renewal next week or a
okay, good.
retreat.
Good. Very good. So next year, this is a good thing to point out that Annapurna is prompting us. Because this event is happening in June 30th to July 7th, this is taking the place of Spiritual Renewal Week, so that won't happen next August. And it may be that we won't have a Sevaka retreat next year because it's going to be massive, all hands on deck. And so, this will have to take precedent over everything. So, and also to mention too, along with that, this year we had wonderful Yogananda Yoga, Living Your Yoga Fests in every major area where we have communities and big centers. They were fabulous. And I just want to thank all of you from Seattle and Portland and Sacramento and Palo Alto who were involved with, and Los Angeles, you were the first for putting these on. They were extraordinary. And the number of people we reached, new people, I don't think we could have done it any other way. Next year we will not be doing the Yoga Fests because, again, we're wanting to bring people here. So in a way you can think, wow, that was pretty good planning, but we didn't plan it. Really reach a lot of new people, then draw them for the Ananda's 50th. The following year, 2020, Master's 100th anniversary, probably will be a big outreach year again. So it's good to, kind of have that fluctuation.
Will we still have in May the Kriyaban Retreat Week?
No, she's asking, will we have the Kriyaban Retreat? No, we will have only a simple Kriya initiation. Swamiji's birthday weekend.
Okay.
We'll celebrate his birthday, I believe it's on a Sunday, and we will have a Kriya initiation. But then the following year we'll pick up the old standbys. But we just, between the Tulip Fest and this, we have to kind of see how much energy we can really put out to pull off things well. Oh, you want to come up and talk about that part? Please, hurry. Parvati has been the spark plug that, no, you have. Everybody kept saying, and she kept saying, yes, we're doing this.
We, on Monday, the day that Master gave his roaring talk, July 31st, that morning, actually the next morning, Tuesday morning, we put up the new memorial garden structure. We had poured a cement pad the week before, and this is in the area where 25 years ago, Swami blessed the site across from the amphitheater on the other side of Lotus Lake for the Chapel of Divine Inspiration. It wasn't able to be built then, and so 25 years later, we put up this beautiful little chapel, and it's outdoor, uncovered, and memorial garden means means that it's a place to remember everybody who has passed and been part of Ananda residence and also our broader Ananda spiritual family. So it's in process right now. It's very, very simple. It will eventually have benches and an altar, and then the area aside from that will be a place where we will have names of people that have passed, and it's a lovely, lovely area that many of you are familiar with, and that we will be developing over the coming time as we get donations. So anyway, but do stop by and take a look at it, and if you have any questions about it, just give me an email, call, or whatever. I'm happy to talk with you.
And what the Memorial Garden also, it was designed by our incredible, we're so blessed to have Panduranga designing all these buildings and the Memorial Garden. But it integrates with the design of the arched roof of the temple itself, so that whole area will be, it looks like a planned development. Okay, other questions or important things to comment on? Atman, you have anything? No? Okay. Okay, so I think we'll just close now, and we want to thank you all for coming, And again, thanks to so many of you who helped put on these magnificent yoga fasts. It was, you know, I just have to say, sometimes people say, oh, you guys travel so much, how do you do it? We get energy from high energy. And so it isn't like it drains us, it feeds us. So that's how we keep going.
Could you thank Janaka Foundation, without which it was not possible?
Very good. And we should have done it when Parvati was up here. Janaka Foundation seeded, you know, did whatever costs were, they did half of the expenses, up to $7,000 for every different community. And that's what made it possible. So that was the decision of the Janaka board.
We also want to thank the staff up here for putting on this wonderful event. You know, there are so many, really hundreds of unsung heroes who make this beautiful work go. And so it's nice once in a while to clap for each other. Okay, let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, Saints of all religions, beloved Swamiji, we humbly bow to you all. Bless us as thy instruments to bring thy light ever more dynamically to dispel the darkness of this world. And bless us in our individual search for self-realization. We are thine. Be thou ours. Om. Peace. Amen. Thank you all.